Very good morning. Welcome to Breakfast with Dan Walker and Louise Minchin.
The headlines for you at 6 o'clock this morning. COVID vaccinations are to be made compulsory for care home staff in England.
A family living with Parkinson's disease. We're with World Cup winner Mike Tindall as he heads home to see his dad for the first time in 6 months.
In an exclusive interview with the BBC, the Countess of Wessex tells us how hard the royal family have been hit by the death of the Duke of Edinburgh.
It wasn't in my God moment. So I think they'll come and go. But you have to let them come and let them go.
A new trade deal with Australia. Good morning. I'm in the Forest of Bowland, asking why the ink drying on Downing Street's affecting the lambs here in Lancashire.
A big test for Wales in the Euros. They face Turkey, who are expected to be roared on by 30,000 supporters in Azerbaijan.
Good morning. We've had some heavy rain overnight across Scotland and Northern Ireland. As that sinks southwards, the rain will turn lighter and more patchy in nature. But ahead of it, it's going to be another hot and humid day with some thunderstorms later. I'll have all the details coming up.
Good morning. It's Wednesday morning. It's the 16th of June, and COVID vaccinations are to be made compulsory for care home staff in England who work with older people. It's expected that workers will have 16 weeks to get the jab or face losing their jobs.
Ministers said to be concerned about the low take-up of the jab in some areas, and consultations will also start on bringing in the same rule for other health and care staff. James Reynolds reports.
1, 2.
Staff in adult care homes look after the people most likely to die from COVID-19. More than 80% of workers have already been vaccinated. The rest now face a choice: get the jab or give up their job. The government says the move to make vaccination compulsory will save lives. It says there's precedent for this. Surgeons, for example, are required to get the hepatitis B vaccine. But for some in the social care sector, an ultimatum is simply too blunt.
We absolutely agree. We would like to see everybody vaccinated to keep our workforce safe. That includes any visitors coming into our services, any professionals coming into our services. We'd like to see everybody vaccinated, but we can't compel them to do it. It will be really worrying that they have been singled out, care homes have been singled out, and our staff have been singled out for this as a compulsory move. I think it should be rethought.
But one organisation welcomes the move. In February, the Barchester Care Group announced that it would make COVID vaccination for its 17,000 staff compulsory. In the end, around 80 staff declined. They have now left their jobs.
We've had to make a choice between the rights of our residents to remain safe and as safe as possible, which is a legal obligation we have as a provider, and the individual rights of people's choice to choose not to have the vaccine. And of course, that is a balance, and we've taken advice on it and thought about it long and hard. And actually, in the end, there is an overarching responsibility for us as a provider for the safety of our residents.
No wonder where they are.
Care home staff are expected to be given 16 weeks to get jabbed. The government is also beginning a consultation into extending compulsory vaccinations to staff who work for the NHS. James Reynolds, BBC News.
It's a big issue. Do let us know what you think about that this morning. Let's talk to our chief political correspondent, Adam Fleming. Morning to you, Adam. So I imagine the government will be arguing that there are similar rules in place already for surgeons and the hepatitis B jab, but there will be some resistance to this.
Yeah, this is quite controversial amongst care home operators and some of the trade unions that represent care home staff, because they say surely a better way would be to encourage people who haven't had the vaccine to get it and to make it really easy and really reassuring rather than compelling them to have it. Also, some care home operators saying this will make it even harder than it already is to recruit staff because some potential employees might be put off by this. But the government say it's the right thing to do to protect elderly residents in care homes where they live. The scientists say that when it came to the first dose, certainly you needed at least 80% of care home staff to have been vaccinated. That may have changed now that the second dose is around, but also it may have changed because of the presence of the new, more transmissible variant of the virus as well. And the government says that in some care homes in some parts of the country, it's quite far below that 80% level. And so we'll see this decision being made in the next couple of days. And then, as we heard from James Reynolds there, care home workers will have 16 weeks to get their jab.
Something else to talk about, the discussion around the delay to lockdown has been very much high on the agenda for the last few days. And today that goes to Parliament, doesn't it?
Yeah, so to deliver that month-long delay to the final step of the lifting of the lockdown to the 19th of July, the government has to amend the law that puts the lockdown restrictions in England in place. And so that will be voted on by MPs today. As usual, when these things come to Parliament, you can expect a fairly large handful of Conservative MPs to rebel against it because they're not pleased with the decision. But Labour are supporting it, which means it will inevitably get through Parliament. There is no risk to this actually happening, but it'll be another opportunity for critics of the government to make their case. We'll get another sense of just how many Conservative MPs are concerned, which will then give you a bit of a sense of what problems the government might face next time they have to put any kind of legislation referring to COVID to the House of Commons. Talking to MPs yesterday on the Conservative backbenches, they are just worried that this delay means there'll be maybe another delay in a couple of weeks' time, or maybe something else will come up in a couple of weeks' time, which just means that some restrictions will still be in place rather than all the restrictions being lifted, which had been the government's intention. OK, Adam, thank you very much for running us through that this morning.
Sophie, the Countess of Wessex has reflected on the death of the Duke of Edinburgh in an emotional interview with Naga for her BBC 5 Live radio programme.
She was speaking ahead of the UN's International Day for the Elimination of Sexual Violence in Conflict. Our royal correspondent Daniela Relf has more.
This is something. The Countess of Wessex spoke openly about her charity work, parenting teenagers, and the death of the Duke of Edinburgh. Just before lockdown, she visited South Sudan to raise awareness of sexual violence against women living in conflict zones. It's a key part of her royal work, and she praised the bravery of women who shared the brutality of their experience.
When you hear somebody's story of gang rape and literally physically what has happened to them, it absolutely brings you to your knees. And I had tears falling off my face as she was talking to me. I was completely silent, but I was just in floods of tears.
The Countess also welcomed the increased openness amongst young women in the UK to discuss the sexual harassment and abuse they've faced. She said it was something she discussed with her 17-year-old daughter and valued the honest conversations they have as a family.
She's actually quite aware of it, so we chat about it quite a lot, and particularly if I've been on a trip somewhere, she wants to know where I've been and what I've been doing. So she has a natural curiosity about it, and it's easy to have that kind of conversation with her.
She also spoke about the death of the Duke of Edinburgh and the impact of grief, especially those moments that catch you when you realise he isn't there.
We were lucky enough to go to Scotland for half term, and I don't know if you remember the photograph that I took.
You took of the Queen and the Duke.
It was, I was pregnant with Louise at the time, and we went up there during half term.
You okay?
And just to be there in that place was an oh my God moment. So I think they'll come and go. But you have to let them come and let them go.
Away from the sadder moments, the Countess said she'd got fitter in lockdown, and the TV series she'd binged over the past year, Line of Duty. Daniela Ralph, BBC News.
So interesting to hear from her about all those different things. You can hear that full interview on BBC Radio 5 Live from 10 o'clock this morning.
She's not the only one who's binged Line of Duty. There's a
I thought you might have noticed that.
My ears were pricked when they hear that. I can't help myself. It's fast approaching 10 minutes past 6. Let's bring you some other news this morning. Israel says it has launched airstrikes against Hamas targets on the Gaza Strip. This is in retaliation for incendiary balloons fired from Palestinian territory.
It's the first major attack since 11 days of fighting between the two sides ended in a ceasefire last month.
President Biden and Russian leader Vladimir Putin will meet for a summit in Geneva later today for the first time since Mr. Biden's inauguration. Both leaders say they hope the talks will lead to more stability, but with relations between the two countries under severe strain, it's likely to be a little tense.
See the headlines as they happen and watch BBC News live in the app and get the full story with bbc.co.uk/news. Follow the story for all the latest with BBC News.